Welcome to episode 4 of the Etsy Consultant Podcast. And today I thought, I was sat here in this room thinking, what am I going to talk about today? What can I bring my followers and people who care about listening to me and what I've got to say? And the answer was right there on the wall, which is my sign that I put up. It's not about SEO. And I thought I'd take a bit of time to talk about SEO and, why, even though I tell people, guys, you don't have to spend much time on SEO at all to be adequate for Etsy and be found in search and make sales. It's still the most sought after piece of content that I ever put out. And I put out the 2024 update to my, how to do Etsy SEO in 10 minutes video. It was out 2 weeks ago. And immediately it spawned 4 or 5 copies. So 4 or 5 other people on YouTube tried to copy it in their own way. And it just shows that there's such a lack of knowledge around SEO. Even this video that I put out that very simply explains how to do your Etsy SEO easily and quickly. So many people still don't know how to do it, and more importantly, don't understand what SEO in general and Etsy SEO is about. So the first thing I want to talk about is the history. I want to just go into a little bit about why we've arrived at this, not arrived, but how we've sort of passed through in the last 10 years, this hysteria on Etsy for SEO. And there's also a hysteria in general on the internet. If you own an e-commerce shop and you're trying to sell products on the internet, you'll just see endless videos on how to do Google SEO, how to maximize your SEO, your keywords, get the clicks, get the views, So taking this back years, so before 2011, Etsy used something called recency in its search, and that meant that you put your keywords in, so whatever keywords you want to describe for your item, and then if you sold the item or renewed the item, you would automatically appear at the top of search again. Now I know this sounds crazy and I know some of you will already know this, but lots of people don't know this, newer sellers. So recency was what Etsy used to use. If you sold it, you renewed it, someone typed in the search query that you had, you would automatically appear at the top of search. And so what do you think people did? They were just constantly renewing their items. And this is where the whole renewing thing comes from. Perhaps some of you know that lots of people on YouTube say, renew your items, keep renewing your items. It doesn't work anymore. They changed it in late 2011 from recency to relevancy, which smashed that whole loophole of constantly renewing to appear at the top of search. It's absolutely bonkers if you think about it. So yeah, late 2011 they changed this search mechanism to relevancy, and that means are you relevant? Are you what the customer is looking for when they type in the keywords that they're looking for? And it makes sense, doesn't it? Because it makes it much harder to game or manipulate the system and appear at the top of search. So once Etsy did that and changed it to relevancy, they left out huge areas of how SEO worked on Etsy. Yes, they did the Etsy seller handbook. Yes, they said about matching your titles and tags, which, as I've told you many times, doesn't matter anymore. It just doesn't matter. They said to use short, concise titles and, focus on what you're trying to describe to sell. That's the good bit of information. Focus on what you're trying, to describe your item, which is, I agree. That's, I talk about that all the time. But they're so vague in what ranks items on Etsy. And fortunately, because I've been doing my job for 10 years, I found out myself. I haven't waited for Etsy to maybe tell me something about ranking, and I found out a long time ago that SEO just doesn't rank anything, and I talk about this all the time. But the problem is it takes someone like me to find the truth here and expose it for what it is so that people don't waste their time on SEO. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, and I always say, yes, you should do it. You need to describe your items so that the search engine can find them and index them and show them to relevant queries from customers. But Etsy being so vague is what causes the problem. And it's what made a whole industry spring up around search. So companies like eRank, Marmalade, Allura, Sales Samurai, Everbee, the list goes on and on. I'm not going to go into detail and talk about any of these tools. You know these tools, I'm just mentioning them so that so that we can reference them in this discussion. So lack of clarity, lack of concrete information from Etsy about what goes into search and more importantly, what goes into ranking, because as I've said, SEO definitely doesn't rank anything. You can test it yourself. It's a numbers game, it's quality score that ranks items, not SEO. And people often say to me, well, what about long tail keywords? And that's not ranking either, that's lack of competition. So if you have four words in a keyword set, like I always use this sterling silver filigree necklace. Well, if you type that into search and only 100 items come up, yeah, you're going to be right at the top of search, but that's not ranking. That's just lack of competition. You try doing that same process with the keyword silver necklace with one item in your store and see how far you'll get. You'll never rank. You'll never be seen. So the industry took over. So we've got this whole industry with all these companies, as I've said, that took over and filled in their own blanks for what was missing from Etsy. So the lack of clarity, the lack of definition, the lack of what's going on from Etsy side allowed these companies to spring up and say, we're going to give you some answers. Not necessarily the right answers, but we're going to give you answers. And of course, it turned into a multi-million-dollar industry, and lots of people use these tools. And these tools have good points. I'm not saying they don't. They have useful shop functions, but the lack of information from Etsy, I believe, caused this problem in the first place. And it's so overblown. Honestly, when clients come to work with me, I'd say 70% of them still think that it's SEO that they need to know about. Nick, I want to know about SEO. How do I do my keywords? How do I rank higher? How do I make more sales? It's absolute madness, right? Think about it. 140 characters in your product title, right? 13 boxes of 20 characters for your tags. Are we seriously sitting here today thinking that these characters, these words, are everything that matters to ranking on Etsy? Of course not. When you actually sit there and look at it, it's bonkers. It's absolutely crazy. Of course it's not. Keywords and SEO, they're just to give Etsy an idea of what your item's about, who it should be showing it to. And your job is to make sure that you accurately describe your items. That's your job. That's what you've got to do. Etsy does the rest of the lifting. And I talked about this in my latest Etsy SEO video, which I urge you to watch if you haven't already, because it just makes the process of doing SEO on Etsy so much easier. Etsy will, if you type in sterling silver necklace, Etsy will do a full match of all three keywords. It will do a partial match, so just silver necklace. If you've got enough sales behind you to give you that visibility, it will even match you just for necklace. It will even match you for no keywords at all. And this is something that I want to conclude on in this podcast today. Companies like Etsy are desperately trying to move away from the SEO model. Keywords. If you think about it, it's so dated, isn't it? For example, if you do live shopping. So I believe something that's coming to Etsy is a greater use of video, much greater use. So shops being able to do lives, so lives inside Etsy to sell. And think about the world of opportunities that opens up once you start to include live video and that interaction with people. So rather than SEO being used to find products, now we're talking about people doing lives. You can have channels and feeds on Etsy. Customers can go in there and choose what feed they want, what area they favorite it, and then they start to get areas of Etsy that they're interested in, and they can watch lives from the shops that they favorite, and they start to purchase in a non-SEO way. And this is something, Etsy's way behind on things like video shopping and ways to use interactivity. There's a whole world out there. Think of TikTok. Think of TikTok Shop and what they're doing over at TikTok, giving sellers on TikTok a myriad of ways to sell their items live to their followers, to people passing by that drop in on their live. This is where this is all going. When you think about keywords and SEO, it's so antiquated. Typing keywords in, the whole mechanism to me feels dated. What do you think? Do you think SEO feels dated? I certainly do. And I pay as little time and attention to it as possible when I work with my clients building and growing their Etsy stores. Don't waste your time, spend a little bit of time, but don't think it's Superman that's going to come in and take your store to new heights. So yeah, we're moving into a future where keywords just aren't going to matter as much, and I can't wait for Etsy to move forward and embrace even video shopping, interaction. It sounds so dated. I mean, QVC and TV channels like that, they've been doing it for 25, 30 years. It's just absolutely crazy, but Etsy needs it. I really think Etsy needs that interactivity to create communities. Now imagine this. Your shop on Etsy can accumulate followers like YouTube. So imagine that you can broadcast to your followers, and then the quality of your videos and what you sell starts to come through, and you can start to build your own internal community on Etsy. That would be amazing. That would just open up whole new worlds of opportunity for us as sellers, and also Etsy as a platform. And I feel that this is where, one of the areas that Etsy needs to move into. Etsy's already saying, look, we want to find new ways to do SEO. We want to find new ways to solve the problem of how do you surface the right product to the right customer at the right time. And there's no better time, there's no better way to do that than having shops that have the ability to sell through video and have communities and interactivity. It would be incredible. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good idea? Put it in my podcast comments. My podcast channel is still quite small. So put your thoughts on what I've been talking about today into my comments. So last of all, I just want to say that if you want to work with me, don't wait, don't guess. Just email me at enquiries@etsy-consultant.com. Inquiries at etsy-consultant.com. I'll put the email address on the screen right here, okay? And if you want to work with me, please do so. And I can take you through the maze of Etsy and get you selling and get you making money, which is what this is all about, right? Hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. I look forward to speaking to you in the next one. Thank you.